It's time for question and answer, and today's question is one that I've been asked several times. And here is exactly how the person wrote it, the fellow wrote it, as a matter of fact. He said, I go back and forth so often between leaving and staying. And one day she's so loving and I think there's hope. And the next day it seems she'll be the biggest, scariest nightmare. How do I know what to do? How do I know when to do it? How do I know if I should do it? I need help. Well, I really agree with you. You do need help when this happens because this is what hijackals do. Now, if you haven't read the ebook, my free ebook, How to Spot a Hijackal, go to hijackals.com and read it. Because if you identify that you're with a hijackal, and it sounds so much like this is true for this fellow, then you need to know that that is something special. It's something that has different ways of relating to one another, and they're unhealthy. They're very unhealthy. And the hijackal will always want to make everything your fault. So you can get into a place where you're always feeling like you're at fault. You need to know these things about being in a relationship with a hijackal. And what tells me that this fellow is in a relationship with one is he says that one day she's so loving and the next day she's a nightmare. And when there's a pattern like that, it's what I call all or nothing thinking, black and white thinking. And that's one of the hallmarks of hijackals. You know, I've written a lot, and I even have a program called Seeing the Cycles that you can find at forrelationshiphelp.com, because we need to see the cycles. There are 10 hallmarks of hijackals, and one of them is this black or white thinking, this all or nothing thinking. And that's what causes a person, in this case, this man's partner, to be all in one day and all out the next. And you may say to yourself, okay, well, he's asking the question, should he be or all out? Well, he's responding to the fact that one day she's pulling him towards him. And no, I said that wrongly. One day she's pulling him towards her, and the next moment she's shoving him away. And that's where it gets really, really confusing, because you don't know which person to believe, which set of behaviors to believe. Do you want me? Do you want me to go away? What are you doing? But if this is a pattern that's occurring over and over, not just once or twice or once a year or something, but if it's happening weekly, and if you're in a hijackal relationship, it will happen, sometimes daily, sometimes several times a day. One day you're the best thing since sliced bread, and the next day you're the scum of the earth, or the next moment for that matter. And that's a hijackal hallmark. So this fellow is saying, well, she's like that. She's like that. What should I do? How do I know? When do I leave? What do I do? And just a word, remember, if you have children, and I don't know whether this fellow has children or not, but when you have children, you have to know that their brains are not fully developed. And they don't really fully develop until we're 25. But in the first 10 years of life, 10 years of life, there is a great deal changing in the brain. And the child is taking in everything without any filter as to what that means or whether that's good or bad. Everything is a reflection to them, like, oh, this is life. This is what I have to do to survive. Or this is what makes the giants, my parents, happy. So I should do this. No matter, they don't have any filter. They don't know if it's good, bad, or wrong. They just know it keeps the giants happy and it keeps things in equilibrium. So when there's a hijackal involved, the children are watching the relationship just as they do in healthy relationships, but they're watching and they're learning and they're taking it in and they're deciding who they are as a result of how the relationship is being seen and how their parents are treating them and each other. So it's really important to understand this dynamic. So how do you know? Well, first of all, if it's happening over and over and over again, the fault is with the person who is creating that, who is saying, and it's shared fault. So I'm going to talk about both sides of the fault. The fault is with the person who is constantly doing the pushing away and the pulling towards. And the fault on the other side is with the person who enables it, who allows it to continue. And these are relationships where somebody has to say no more. Now, the hijackal will not be the one who says no more because they have to win. Yeah, sometimes they're going to push you away. That's what makes you want to go away. But they don't really want you to go away because that would mean losing to them. And they don't like losing. Only time that they will do that is if they have other supply waiting in the wings somewhere to go on to, and they will be quite happy to move along. But they've been cultivating that supply in the wings for a while. So back to this fellow's question, how do I know? Well, internally you're not happy, so you already know. This is not a good thing. The first thing you have to do is say to your partner, this is not working very well. Neither one of us are happy. Would you like to get some help? Will you go with me to get some help? And if the answer is yes, then get the best person you possibly can. And I'll put up my hand here because I'd love to work with you. And let's work together. Or go to somebody that you trust and work with them. But make sure, if you've already found out that you have a hijackal in the relationship, that you go to someone who can help you with that. Someone who can recognize that. Someone who can call it when it happens. And many people cannot do that. One of the worst things that happens for a person who's in a relationship with a hijackal is that they go to a counselor or a professional or whomever, whatever label you want to put on that professional, and they hope, they really, really hope that finally all of these negative behaviors, in fact, I believe they're abusive behaviors, are happening and they will be seen, and that's why they're so anxious to go to this professional. But a hijackal, manipulative, seductive, exploitive. What is the hijackal going to do? They're going to do their darndest to seduce and charm and exploit the professional, to get that professional on their side. And then what will happen to the partner? The partner will be marginalized and re-wounded because now two people will be telling them what's wrong with them and how they should shape up. So further to the answer to your question, okay, go and get some help. Get some good help. And if it is something that starts to work for you, that's great. Somebody who's experienced in this field will tell you whether or not it will help. Or if you are with a hijackal, that hijackal will only stay for a short period of time, 2 or 3 sessions, if the professional is not agreeing with them most of the time. They will walk out. I've had that happen many times, and that's one of the ways that you know that that other person is trying to run the show. And when the other person is trying to run the show, you're not going to be able to solve the problem. And that's when you have to really wake up and smell the herbal tea and say, okay, this relationship is not going to be equitable, mutual, respectful, or reciprocal. What am I going to do about it then? So your first step is to get that clarity. See if you can get help, try some strategies, see if they work, or find that this is not going to work. And when you know it's not going to work, then you have to start making a plan to leave the relationship. Or whether you're going to leave it, my tongue doesn't work today, whether you're going to leave it physically or emotionally, that's another question that you have to ask because of the ages of your children. Maybe there are things that you have to stay in the relationship for to regroup financially. There are many considerations, but get the help, just as this fellow's asking me for, get the help to find out if the relationship has the possibility of actually consistently improving, or if it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then you need some help to understand what's going on, to recognize the issues, and to realize that you now need to have a strategy in place for how you're going to keep yourself emotionally, physically safe. So in answer to your question, I think you're probably very, very tired of the push and pull me, come closer, go away. And that is an unhealthy way to be in a relationship. So get some help, do a lot of reading. Call me if you need help from me. I'm happy to help you. Go to forrelationshiphelp.com and let's talk. Let's figure this out. because you deserve to be in a healthy, happy, emotionally intimate relationship. Talk soon.